Whoa, it's part 2. We're back. A while ago I made the first video in my Investigating Resident Evil 4 Remake series, which is a series of video essays I wanted to make about Resident Evil 4 Remake. Previously in part 1 I analyzed the village area, how it differs from the original's village in terms of tone and gameplay, and other areas relating to the village. Now today, the reason you probably clicked on the video is because I'll be talking about the castle area of Resident Evil 4 Remake. There isn't much else for me to say, then let's just dive right into the castle. If you've played the original Resident Evil 4, I think a lot of players can agree that the castle area of the game is the area of the game where the horror felt the most present, and where the most disturbing enemies of the game were found. From the regular ganados that chant religious verses, I guess, to the novistadors, which I actually hoped would get cut from the remake, to the boss fights, both mini and major. All these enemies added towards the horror feel, as unlike the village where the enemies felt more mysterious, and the island where the enemies felt like they came straight out of Call of Duty, the castle enemies were those that felt scarier from how they were presented, and how they forced you to play the game. I haven't mentioned the level design and art direction either, because both managed to make you feel cramped and create a continuous feeling of claustrophobia as you are a foreigner treading in Salazar's playground. From having gone through the village in the remake and coming away feeling the sense of horror more than I did in the original, it should be no surprise that I think that the castle in the remake is far and away the scariest part of the game, surpassing the castle of the original in terms of horror. But how does the remake manage to do this? A lot of it comes down to the art direction of the game and how it contrasts with the sense of cluelessness that the game manages to pull off. Visually speaking, I think the castle is the best looking area in the whole game. Its architecture is a lot more detailed, generally feeling and looking like a Spanish castle from its layout and how well the RE engine makes everything look. However, although the castle looks stunning, traversing the castle gives off this feeling of solitude, as you're traversing the lifeless corridors and empty rooms which are filled with dangers that can quickly put an end to you. From the light-filled halls to the cellars with the garradors to the underground area. Even though you have a partner with you, either in the form of Ashley and Luis, you still feel at odds with the hostile world around you. That's just how the world looks and feels, because the combat and gameplay in the castle is where the true horror shines through. From the original RE4, my 3 scariest combat encounters I had were the water room, the night room, and the courtyard. All of these share one common element, that being how they create tension stemming from different roots of this feeling. All these 3 encounters are still in the game, and I think the horror is amplified because of the faster speed of gameplay that applies to both you and the enemies. In the water room, they swarm you like they did in the original, but with the added speed, you'll find yourself quickly backed into a corner. However, although the remake makes the tension feel more real in the water room, I prefer the water room in the original, as the slightly slower paced onslaught of enemies felt scarier to me. The night room and courtyard on the other hand were far scarier than their original counterparts, and I think that's in part thanks to the modern technology on display. In the courtyard, the sound design plays a massive role in making you feel surrounded, and that was super tense to play through. Hearing the dogs growling and snarling behind the bushes and maybe catching a sight or glimpse of them really fueled the fear. The night room on the other hand benefited from the improved visuals and animations, because they really looked deranged and out of control, really showing how the Las Plagas parasite is controlling their every move. However, the scariest sequence overall, non-combat included, is still Ashley's part. Ashley's segment is scarier than ever. The lighting in her area is a lot darker, only having a blue lantern to see your surroundings and having to rely on the crouching to duck for cover and to sneak past enemies creates super tense moments where you see the enemy almost up in your nose, but they can't see you. Not only are these moments a lot darker than Leon's sections, they also feel a lot more survival horror with its tight level design. Lots of sharp turns and corridor-like paths with little room to move around freely. Not only that, you cannot fight back, literally. I loved how they changed up the basement area where you have to do a mad dash through to get past all the Plagas infected knights. Really great tense moment here. I could keep going on how much scarier the remake is with lots of improved set pieces, like going back to the basement with the knights as Leon, the new improved Garrador fights, but I still don't get why they didn't cut the Novista. Resident Evil has some pretty strong set pieces throughout the entire series, like the dog jump scare back in Resident Evil 1, Nemesis busting through some random window in RE3, boulder punching in RE5, or even Heisenberg's boss fight in Resident Evil Village. Might be a hot take and slightly biased because I love this remake so much, but I think that the set pieces in 4 Remake are some of the best in the entire series. I already talked in length about how good the Village's set pieces were in part 1 of this series, and the castle keeps this trend going. I'm talking about those big bombastic moments that make you go, yeah, this is epic. The first part of the castle really made me feel this sense of rush, where the catapults are firing at you. It's not as epic as the other sections that I will be talking about later, but it felt a lot more intense than before. I felt that the impacts of the catapult were a lot closer than before, making the dangers feel a lot more real. And of course, constantly having to pick up Ashley from slightly getting hurt did get a bit tedious thanks to the hitboxes of the impacts. But this feeling of having the action be more present and in your face than before is something that is echoed throughout the castle area. Although the castle is not the most action-heavy area of the game, as that belongs to the island, I think the set pieces created here are far better made compared to the island. First, the ground level set pieces, your regular encounters that have increased hype. For instance, when you first see the new type of parasite, or when the Arana Las Plagas takes control and charges down this narrow corridor. I mean, even fighting the big night plagas in the basement is taken to a new level. However, there are some set pieces from the original that have been cut. One of the craziest set pieces from the original is the chase from the big Salazar statue. Why it was there to begin with, who knows, but one thing is certain, and that it was pretty funny and epic. What they added instead is this, like, escape kind of sequence. It's not half as fun as the QuickTime event in my opinion, and having the Salazar statue simply be a flamethrower serves more as a nod to the original, and failing to be a worthwhile replacement. Another cut area that didn't make sense in the original, but was epic nonetheless, was the Dragon Flame room. Look, I don't remember much about this room other than it existing and being exciting to play through. Sucks that it got cut, but we move. Despite there being some segments that have been cut, the remake goes ahead and changes the order and timeline of certain events and amps up the hype. And these sections are with Luis, and 4 of the best moments in the entire game are followed in quick succession. It starts with the minecart ride and ends with the Verdugo. After Leon gets sent to the underground cave system, Leon meets Luis. I won't go deeply into the story of the game or why he is here, as that's saved for the story video I plan to make later on. Anyways, you team up with Luis and have to escape the caves through a minecart. This section plays a lot more different compared to the original, but man does it go crazy. The music here plays an instrumental role, pun not intended. The deep notes with heavy percussion that just erupts into something big. Just the whole presentation does, wow dude. The minecart flying in the air, the twists and turns, the chainsaw man in the neighboring car trying to slice you, and Luis, man, I love Luis as a character. His character is great, and the cutscenes with him at the end of this section is filled with personality. Big shout out to his voice actor, did such a phenomenal job with Luis. And then right after this, you'll be fighting 3 boss fights in a row. First, the double El Gigante fight. This one caught me off guard because of how it played differently from the original and how it trips up the player. Instead of sinking one of the El Gigantes in the lava pool, these big fellas are smart enough to get out of the way before you can sink them, meaning both you and Luis have to contend to your respective Gigantes. Before taking one of them out, Luis pulls out dynamite from who knows where, opening up the opportunity of sinking the final Gigante. It's small changes like this that make the same set pieces from the original differ from the OG. The biggest change in terms of order and timeline directly after fighting this boss fight is the Krauser knife fight. What was once a QuickTime event knife fight on the island has now become a close quarters parry fight under the castle. I won't again delve into the story significance of this and mainly focus on the fight itself. This fight, without a doubt, is the second best fight in the game. There's just something so cool about parrying and being actively involved in this epic fight from the original. Sure, it's not too tough as the parrying window is pretty generous, but the setting, dialogue, and sheer awesomeness of this fight is really well made, setting a very high mark for our next encounter with Krauser on the island. And the next 2 fights in the game range from great to okay. The Verdugo fight I enjoyed a lot. The increased mobility in the remake makes this fight and chase battle a whole lot more hectic and engaging, and the iconic elevator beeps are back. There isn't much for me to say about this battle other than I enjoyed it a lot. Although it plays relatively same to the original, I just enjoyed it a lot more in this remake, just plain and simple. One fight that I was not a big fan of in the original, and I'm also not that much of a fan of in the remake either, is Salazar. Salazar here is this mutated amalgamation that zips and darts around the arena. This leads to some really annoying moments as because Salazar's speed, lots of your weapons are effectively useless because many times you won't get the opportunity to line up your shots before he suddenly to your left and shoots his black goo at you. What even is more annoying is his insta-kill move. It's not telegraphed at all and just happens suddenly to you while you're staring at your screen emotionless, wondering why it even happened. Sure, the presentation is epic like the other bosses that I've talked about, but this is a situation where the gameplay drags this boss fight down. However, the music in this fight, insane stuff right there. I love the waltz combined with classical music. It's such a vibe. I originally had planned to write another paragraph about the castle, but I think I've covered about most of my reasoning as to why the castle is as good as it is, how it improves upon the original, and an area where I think it's weaker. Yes, like the village, the combat sandbox at play here is very wide open, and the castle highlights that in big ways with its new enemy types. Its boss fights or boss-like sections, where there are quite a few of, also highlights this in a great manner, and couple this along with its epic presentation through gameplay patterns, stunning visuals, and amazing music. There is so much to enjoy as you play the game. But on the complete flip side of its monumental encounters, you have the more quiet and intimate moments with yourself wondering what's around each corner. The RE engine does wonders at creating this lonesome and horrific feeling that can really get a good scare out of you. And the way the game casually manages to switch between full-on action and methodical horror is very well done. And that's why I think the castle is the best area in the game. Except for the novistadros, everyone would be so much happier if they just come. And with that, welcome to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, a like, comment with your own thoughts, and a subscribe all mean a lot. And if you didn't enjoy the video, a dislike also helps so that I can improve for the next video. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, night, and week. And with that, Storm out.